probably tell from the background, we're not at the museum where we normally do our interviews. We are actually at the Buoy Family Swim School. Did I get that right? And we're here to interview the entire Johnson family.
Well, so part of it.
This will be, yeah, part of it. Well, this will be a fun deal. Before we get started, I just want to say that in 2017, every man that I knew wished they were Johnny Johnson, including me. He was the very first person to win the contest of Mr. Tustin. And everyone was jealous, of course. So we all wished we were Johnny Johnson for a short while. In 2017, the very first person.
Well, thanks for that, Ivan.
It was a fun night.
It was.
The thing I think everybody would like to know first is what's the history of the Buoy Swim School? How did it get started? How did it evolve? So,
Well, it's been quite a journey over 65 years now, Ivan. And as most journeys, it started with a dream or a vision, and that was Mr. Mel Maxwell, who was a college student at Occidental College, who along with a couple of his classmates all swam and played water polo and decided that they wanted to start swim schools. And in the 1950s, that was a fairly common theme. There were several schools that popped up, but Mel and Doris had a little different feeling of what they thought Learn to Swim should be all about. So just to kind of put things in perspective, 1956, there were a couple other institutions that are local to here. A place called Disneyland opened in 1955. Blue Buoy opened in 1956. And a year later, the Tustin Chamber of Commerce was founded. So I like to think we're in pretty good company.
yeah.
But the dream Mel and Doris had continued. They wanted to do things a little differently, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the philosophy and methodology. But they built the first school in South Santa Ana on South Flower Street, and I happened to live a block away from there at the time. And 1959, winter of 58 and all of 1959 and part of 1960, I was on their swim team. And my mom was a good friend of another swimmer there, and so the Blue Buoy connection was strong with our family there.
You must have been a good swimmer.
I was not. I was I was not good enough to get into Mel's group. I had to swim with Doris's group, with the slower kids. But they often say that those that can't teach. And so I like to think I found my niche. But a lot of other things were happening during that decade. Blue Buoy expanded to a couple other locations. One was actually in Newport Beach on Balboa Island, where I started in the summer of 1967. And there was another pool that we leased, as well as the Balboa Island one in Anaheim, over by Servite High School. In fact, Mel used to coach the Servite High School swim team back in the mid-'60s, early 60s rather. The real dream, though, Mel wanted to put in a facility with more modern design, and he wanted a location that was central to all of Orange County, but that was close to freeway, but not right on it. And he found this piece of property in the summer of 1965. It was a family project that the kids still remember helping dig the hole. They had problems with the contractors, and eventually the school opened July 1965, where we are right now.
And the freeway wasn't here.
The freeway was there, yes,
Oh.
but it was slightly different. You know, we'll probably get a photo later of the big wall that separates the Interstate 5 from Nissen Road. That used to be our property line. Around 1990, Caltrans decided to expand the 5, so they changed the route a little bit. Nissen Road moved to where it is now, but it used to be the on-ramp of the 5. So we lost half our parking lot, and there was a Montessori school next door that had to close because of the expansion of eminent domain. But we were eventually able to convince Doris to purchase that property as sort of a defensive move to preserve our parking. But if we look through the history line, we go up, another significant event happened, and that was in 1971, where Mel's vision of potential growth for this area was realized with the incorporation of a city called Irvine. It was nothing but farmland when we started my career here, but Irvine grew and grew, and of course now it's such a huge demographic for our swim school and for all the other businesses around. 1971 also saw another significant event. This lovely lady consented to be my bride, and we're coming up on our 50th anniversary, and I understand it's 6 days after another friend of ours is celebrating his 50th anniversary. So, a lot of neat things. In 1977, the business took a turn that really changed our lives forever, and Mel and Doris decided to turn the sole proprietorship into a corporation. And Cindy and I bought in as partners with one of their children, Marla, and we're now a corporation. We were stockholders, and it was a wonderful experience as we went through the rest of the 70s and the 80s. The 70s saw the birth of our youngest son, Eric, and his older brother, David. The 80s saw a lot of changes in the way we taught. We can talk a little bit about that after, but Mel and Doris became Tustin residents during that time period, late 70s, early 80s, where they bought a condominium on Red Hill. So there was a real Tustin connection. I think I mentioned Cindy and I lived in the apartments 50 yards from here, literally the 100-foot journey from our apartment to the pool. And so Eric had the opportunity to literally grow up here, and he might share some stories about.
So you started swimming at a pretty young age.
Yeah, basically from the time I was, a few months old, probably just being in the water and just starting to learn that love of the water.
Oh, that's
You
great.
know, just having lots of time to experience it and just being in an
Now,
environment.
he said he
that-
wasn't any good at swimming. Are you good?
Probably in a similar situation. I mean, I in the big picture of like the world population, I'm a great swimmer, but like in competitive swimming, it's another story. There's definitely several levels ahead of
You haven't
where
tried
I'm
out for the Olympics, no?
No. But I definitely enjoyed a lot of time swimming, playing water polo, and all that just based on the experiences I had here.
Cindy, are you a big swimmer yourself?
I'm somewhere lower level than I learned it with the Red Cross type.
Okay.
But I love the water, and I'm a proficient swimmer. Don't ask me to do butterfly, but
No, she actually taught for a couple seasons, but yeah, the 80s were neat. In that 1977, like I said, we became partners, and let's see, 99, Doris retired, and Cindy left the corporate world and took over the office, and things really started to take off because she brought a tremendous, not only financial understanding, but business. She was a project manager for a fairly significant computer company that did a lot of work for the military and the Canadian government, for example. So Blue Buoy got an injection of energy, like a vitamin B1 shot, and things really took off at that point. She's got a tremendous background. We complement each other very well, and Eric's got the best of both. He's got the smarts that Cindy has. He's got the love of the water and loves to play with children and be outdoors like I do. But in 2002, the scheduling office moved from, it had made the transition from Mel and Doris's dining room to a small office, which is no longer there, but it was right where the waterworks is and where the library is now. So there was another little cul-de-sac there. So that little business strip is no longer there, but we moved to our current location for Cindy's scheduling office at 100 West Main, right on the corner of Main and El Camino. And you want to tell some of the funny stories of how the girls have adapted to the window view?
oh, they love the window. It's a great place when they're having the parades because we have the best view in the house, and they also have a lovely view of the swinging door.
The swinging door.
There's always things going on in
And
that.
what's there now? What?
we're right above the Wooden Indian.
The Wooden Indian.
Uh-huh.
That's our
So we're on the
scheduling office.
second-
Yeah, so-
second floor.
Got it.
So most people don't know we have that office, but we've
Okay.
got, 5
Oh.
people there,
Wow.
lots of computers, and that's where
Oh,
we
wow.
run the operation.
Just
This
above
is-
the Wooden
yeah,
Indian.
uh-huh.
Got it.
And that's unique to Blue Boys, going back to the multiple locations from the 60s that we've maintained, and the scheduling is all done online or on the phone
Right.
primarily.
Yeah.
So we have,
Offsite, yeah.
Offsite.
most people expect when they walk in here that our little reception area is the scheduling office. And if they ever do visit, they're overwhelmed by, whoa, the computers and all the people on the phone, and it's quite a business hub. But things kept moving on. In 2007, Cindy and I purchased the business, the stock from Marla and Doris,
Bought out
and
all the
so we
stock.
became the sole owners of the business. And the land Doris still owned because the capital
Taxes.
gains taxes would have really been challenged. And we had an agreement in place to negotiate a sale when she passed, and she lived to be 100.
Wow.
So it was wonderful to see her life play out as it did. She was such an incredible woman, and everything that we have is due to her and Mel's vision and investment in people and the community, and we've tried to carry on that legacy. Like I said, we've been able to bring our children into the business, Eric and his brother. Eric has really latched on to it. He's been teaching for 30 years now.
Wow.
And
That's
his
a long
brother
time.
tried teaching. That was not his forte, but he's an IT guy, and he's helped us immensely with the scheduling and marketing.
Now,
So
when you took over the total ownership and control, did you change your philosophy of how you teach swimming?
Not really, because Mel and Doris had a winning formula. You want to talk briefly about that, honey? Just about this would be the typical introduction someone has when they phone in to learn a little bit about what they can expect and what we try to develop in the kids.
Just meeting the individual needs of each child is critical to how we approach things, like a Montessori kind of approach. We don't have a strict curriculum that this is what you do the first 5 minutes and the next of any given lesson program. Our teachers are all very experienced, 2-year minimum in order to be hired. They're all excellent swimmers, and so we
How do you
trust
involve
them.
How do you involve the parents?
They're on the deck, right here. They're not sitting behind glass. They're on the deck, cheering for the kids as they're
Try to get
making-
them as involved
Yes.
as you can.
Yes, so that's an important part of our philosophy, and making it fun. So we want them to learn and enjoy the experience.
Yeah, one of the key elements that Cindy touched on was meeting the individual needs of each child. And in order to really give them the fullest experience we can, we're not just teaching kickers and big arms, we're teaching them to truly live in the water. We want them to become safer in the water by having the skills that can preserve their life in all situations. As they are infants and toddlers, they learn some safety skills. As they learn to swim better, they learn proper behavior, and as the skills develop, that opens the door for more enjoyment. And what we place such a high premium on fun and emotional trust in what we're doing, not only in us, but in themselves in the water. So fear is typically not a common denominator here. We want them to enjoy their life in the water, and then we want them to be able to realize their full potential of water competency, whether that's just being able to swim in the backyard with their kids and as grandparents, or perhaps they want to go into competition. And then,
Well, tell us about some of your
Yeah.
students who've gone on and
well,
done well in competition.
what's our slogan, Eric?
Well, great beginnings lead to great finishes.
And Eric's an example of that. We mentioned that his father was not the world's greatest swimmer. In fact, I always use the line that my Hall of Fame coach, Jack Simon, I was on his first club team in 1960, but he used to say, "There goes Johnny. He may be small, but he sure is slow." So Eric, did his first swim meet when he was 2 years old, and he was a very good swimmer. but he was an All-American water polo player in high school. So that was his great finish. And now, even greater is the contribution he's making as a teacher. He's getting into his second generations. Yep.
That's great, Eric.
But
Water polo is quite a sport.
It's
Wow.
a lot of fun. Yeah, we actually have a couple girls that swam here. Well, I was just going to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about two. I mean,
Yeah.
there's many, but a couple that I coached that are on the Olympic team for the U.S. right now.
Wow.
And
Olympic
then-
water polo.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then among
yeah, they were both gold medalists in Rio de Janeiro. And Eric taught both Mackenzie and Aria Fisher, and their dad was actually an Olympic water polo player. But Eric was a teammate at Villa Park of a boy that I taught back in the 70s, Gavin Arroyo. And Gavin became the high school water polo player of the year and the swimmer of the year, which was an incredible
for his
double.
senior year, yeah.
Yeah. And then he went on to win a couple NC2A championships in water polo at Cal, and he played in 2 Olympics, and now he's the coach at Long Beach State and works on the
Wow.
Olympic team as a coach.
Wow.
And another young man from Foothill High School, Ryan Brown, became a All-American water polo player, I believe, at University Pacific. But he went on as a coach in the Olympics in Beijing, and I believe they were silver medalists there. But Ryan learned to swim here. His sons took some lessons here, and they had to move because he took the head coaching job at the Air Force Academy. So Blue Buoy now boasts 2 NC2A Division I water polo coaches
Wow.
that were both Olympians and both learned here.
Amazing.
Uh,
Well, who are some of the other Olympians?
Oh, well, Cindy taught Jessica Hardy when she was 3 years old. Jessica broke 12 world records in breaststroke, and
Wow.
she was the American record holder in the 50 free, and she
Wow.
medaled in the London Olympics. And she now has 2 small children that are taking lessons from me here. So, and she's participated in a lot of events to help promote learn to swim and water safety. Jason Lezak was the subject of a documentary that's going to be released for the Olympics, I believe this week, from USA Swimming, and it's called The Greatest Race, and it's about the 4x100 freestyle relay in Beijing in 2008, where he had the incredible finishing leg of the relay to close a body length lead that the French swimmer Alain Bernard, who at the time was the world record holder in the 100-meter freestyle, and Jason chased him down and out-touched him by a couple hundredths of a second to
Wow.
get the gold medal, and also preserve Michael Phelps' quest for the 8 gold medals, which he accomplished. So Jason is one of our success stories, but he's just the most wonderful human being. He's a wonderful father of 3 children that have learned here as well and are now following Dad's footsteps. But a lot of neat stories. We wanted to talk a little bit too about the generations that have gone through Blue Buoy. And like I said, Eric's second generation. I swam at Blue Buoy when Dwight Eisenhower was president. You think of all the presidents that Blue Buoy has been in business under. The number of generations that have ties to Tustin is really unique as well. I love eating at restaurants in town, and we have second generation students from Roma d'Italia, from Ruby's. Eric taught Ruby's grandson, Dougie, and the father learned here, but Ruby actually was on this pool deck, so a little bit of history there. Zov's restaurant, we taught Zov and their son and daughter, and then Armin's twins learned to swim here. And then we have
Crab cooker.
the crab cooker. When I was teaching at Balboa Island, the owner of the crab cooker, Mrs. Rubian, used to bring her son Robbie, this was in 1967, and was always telling me, come on over for lunch, we'll give you some crab. And I didn't like seafood, so I never went. It was only as an adult that I discovered the crab cooker as the delicacy that it was. But years later, Robbie's little sister Wanda, who I also taught on Babel Island, married Jim Wasco, who now manages and runs the crab cooker in Inderley Center.
Yes.
And so we've taught their children. So there's 2 generations of the crab cooker. And then J.T. Schmidt, I taught J.T. when he was a young man, and all 3 of his children. So it's wonderful to see the connections. One of our 3rd generation families is a very well-known gymnastics facility here in Tustin called Wildfire. And both Wendy and Rick Watson, the owners, learned as children at Blue Buoy in the 60s. Eric and I taught their daughters, and now Eric's teaching the granddaughters. So
Wow.
We have several 3-generation families and literally hundreds of 2nd generations. And I like to claim one 4-generation family that was Ellen Barrow, who now is a Rosinski, but she took some lessons as a young adult and had all 4 of their children go through lessons. And now their son, Richie, is a grandfather, and actually all his kids have come in for some lessons, and now the great-grandkids. So 4 generations, and it just keeps going. But it's a wonderful,
that's fantastic.
wonderful part of our legacy, and it's so neat that the connections within this Tustin community.
That's a fantastic testament to the kind of training and
And you think
education
how many of
that you're
those
giving
have
people.
become
Wow.
teachers for us? So many of our teachers learned how to swim here.
And this, would you say, was this, many of them, it's their first job.
And isn't many our first job too, which is a responsibility on our part, but it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's great. Well, from what I hear, you have associations that you're affiliated with that are worldwide and certainly national. I wanted to ask some questions about the Swim School Association, both U.S. and worldwide.
Well, there are a lot of learn to swim programs across the country, and you have your public facilities, you have individual teachers that may go to homes, and then you have the phenomena that sprung up in the 1950s of the privately owned swim schools. And early in the 1970s, there was a young man from Florida, or from Arizona actually, that was interested in starting a swim school, and he had a break in his schedule that he was able to take a little tour of California, and he stopped at several swim schools to chat with the owners about the business. And I can still remember sitting in the shallow end of the pool here looking at Mel and Steve Graves talking about, I didn't know what, but Mel introduced me, and I really didn't have much of the conversation. But Steve was just gathering as much knowledge as he could from all these pioneers. And when he actually started his swim school some 10 years later, when Mel passed away, Steve heard of that, and he was truly devastated, because I mean, he felt such a connection to Mel with his openness and willingness to share philosophy and methods, that Steve thought, this is a travesty. All that the knowledge and experience that Mel had is gone, except for those that are under him. So he thought it would be great to form an association of the private swim schools, and he did, and that was the birth of what was then the National Swim School Association in 1988, and Blue Buoy was one of the charter members of, I think there were 20 or so that joined, and it's grown to now a membership pushing 500 swim schools and several international members, and it's just been an incredible association. I've had the honor of serving on the board of directors a couple times and was the past president, but the people we've met and the knowledge we've been able to share. So Blue Buoy has been a big part of that from the beginning. And then, we've sent Eric to a couple of the conferences, and it's hard for us
What
to...
are some of the other countries that are participating in the worldwide?
Well, internationally, every country has some type of learn to swim program, and one of the most developed one is in Australia, and there's a sister organization there, the Australian Swim School Association, and there's been a lot of back and forth sharing of knowledge, and
We're a member of that.
and we are a member of that organization as well. And the leadership of that organization decided to form an international swim school association, I think 3 years ago. And we were asked if we would be ambassadors from the United States representing Blue Buoy.
Well, that's
So
fantastic.
We've had
So you guys do a lot of travel.
well,
In the last like 10 years or so, for sure. Like,
yeah, well, because of the connections, we've been asked to speak at various conferences. I think
Yeah.
we've been in,
Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Sweden,
Wow.
and
throughout the
again,
United States.
it's
Singapore.
afforded us the opportunity to meet
Singapore.
some in Singapore. Yeah. I've got to meet the First Lady of Mexico in Acapulco. She was a patron of an ocean swim that we did as part of the conference, and I'm greeting her while the guards are standing there with their automatic rifles, and it was quite an experience, but very gracious woman. And one of the things that we're most proud of with our association in Tustin is the relationship we have with the Assist Teens, the Tustin Assistance League youth program. The teens do their community service. They're middle school and high school students. And we started a program with one of our former customers, Bonnie Gozowitz, whose daughter was in the teens, and asked if we could create some kind of a Special Olympics type program working with the kids with special abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And we started that program. We're now in, this would be the 11th year.
Wow.
And it's just an amazing program. And then in 2014, we had an opportunity to partner with royalty, Princess Charlene of Monaco, who has a water safety foundation and a foundation to promote sport, reached out to us. She was going to be in LA and wondered if we might connect somehow and do a water safety event and maybe some learn to swim stuff, which was near and dear to her heart. She was an Olympic swimmer from South Africa. And we contacted Jim Palmer from the rescue mission, and they gave us an opportunity to work with some 20 of the children from the Village of Hope. We gave them a few lessons to prep them, and then Princess Charlene showed up, and it was so funny. One of the teens heard we were going to have a princess coming, and he thought it was someone going to come in a princess costume. And then when he saw the white BMW limousines and the bodyguards come out and everyone checking, and then Princess Charlene came out with four-time Olympian Dara Torres as one of her ambassadors, it was eye-opening for him. But it was a wonderful opportunity for us to begin another program, which we're doing to date with the children from the Village of Hope. So we again work with the teens and are able to provide the facility and the mentoring instructors, and we actually teach the teens how to teach the kids.
That's great.
It's
Fantastic.
been wonderful.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about a program called Stop Drowning Now.
Well, this goes back to our beginnings, where we were always concerned with teaching water safety. And like most learn to swim people, we feel that learning to swim is one of the main elements that you can use to prevent drowning. But in the early days,
Drowning's a big deal. isn't it?
it's a
The
global
leading
pandemic.
cause.
You know, more than 1 million people typically will drown every year, with so many that are underreported.
Wow.
But in the United States, I think the number is somewhere around 5,000.
Mm.
And 3 out of the 5 are typically children under the age of 5. So it's
So for little kids, the big deal is get them back to the edge where they can hang on. right?
well, with the real little ones, absolutely. But it's about developing skills, like Mel said, that can preserve their life in the water. If they fall in unintentionally, we want them to be able to get back to the side. We want them to be able to roll over and float if that's within their stress levels that they can handle. And we want them, as they learn to swim, to understand that the risk doesn't go away. Now it's about behavior, because swimmers with ability drown every day, but they make poor decisions. They get into an environment where they're not able to handle it. It can be cold water in a lake. It can be high surf or a rip current at the beach. It can be falling into a river and not being able to get back out because of the current. So it is a wonderful thing that we're trying to do, but there were no consistent messages about drowning prevention. And there are so many different ways that a drowning can occur. But that was one of the goals when I was on the board of directors with the U.S. Swim School Association, which is now what it's called. But we wanted to create a message. And so we, again, looked to our friends in Australia, and they had a wonderful program called Kids Alive, which brought in multiple elements of prevention, not just one silver bullet like learn to swim, because like we said, there's times when kids don't know how to swim, they've got to be protected, that they make bad decisions and so on and so on. But we were able to come up with a program called the Safer 3, and we created a nonprofit, and it went through a couple name changes, and it's finally stopped with Stop Drowning Now, which really describes in a nutshell
That tells
what
the
it's
whole
all about.
story.
It tells the story.
Now, you recently put on an affair over by the city hall, didn't you? To communicate that.
Well, that
to the
was
community.
one of the dreams we had as a board, was to incorporate the messaging in some of the events that we developed with the city governments and create no drown towns. Well, one of our current board members, Dan Brzezinski, who's learned to swim here but has his own aquatics facilities in South County, he's gotten 10 cities on board to become no drown towns, and on May 22nd, 9 of those cities hosted a water safety event, dry land, which is typically done in the water, where families can assess their capabilities for self-rescue, for swimming ability, for
CPR.
understanding CPR, life jackets, reaching assist from the side without going in after them. And we've partnered with Orange County Fire Authority, but this year it was just so wonderful to see this event that was typically only through private swim schools now adopted by the municipal governments. And the city of Tustin has been so supportive. And Don Wagner, our 3rd district supervisor, attended the event with Al Murray and council member, Mayor Pro Tem Austin Lombard and his family were there, Councilwoman Becky Gomez. We had folks from the American Legion
Good.
Post 227 attended, from Rotary Club of Tustin. So it became a real community effort, and
great.
it's just so wonderful to see.
Well, you know a lot more about it than me, but it seems to me that every time I hear about a drowning, it was a parental distraction. So the message needs to go to the parent
Well,
to not get distracted when your
Like
little
I said-
kids are near the pool. It's
And fencing is
It's
another,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not always pools, it's toilets,
Oh, yeah.
it's bathtubs, it's
Buckets of water,
buckets.
yeah.
spas.
Yeah.
so that's part of the education that the families get here. One of the unique things is we try to impress upon them that it's not just learning to swim, it's about controlling the situation and preventing something from happening by recognizing the risk beforehand and trying to reduce those risks. Like Cindy said, if a family has a backyard pool and they have toddlers, if they have unimpeded access to the water, it's a loaded gun. And if you've got kids that are great swimmers and they're goofing around on a diving board, or again, it gets back into the behavior. So it's about educating the parents. They have to understand the difference between passive and active supervision, and that's something that we can impress upon them here. Like Cindy said, they're up close and personal. They're watching the lessons. They're part of it. I mean, they're not teaching, but they're observing and they're learning what their children are capable of doing. They're listening to us talk to them, and we think this is such a vital part of their learning to swim.
And when the parents are around the pool, they need to stay involved.
One of the
going
key
on?
aspects of the Safer 3 is water watcher, having a water watcher. We have water watcher cards.
Oh,
And
that's good.
it teaches them, because a lot of times the fence isn't helping because you're having a pool party, but everybody thinks someone else is watching. So if you have a
Exactly.
water watcher card or a hat or something that says this person's watching the pool for the next 10 minutes and tells other people not to come and talk to them, because if they turn around, now they're not watching. So that's their job, and until you have somebody dedicated to that, then they can switch off, someone else comes in. And it's just
Great
a concept
idea.
that's super helpful, but most people never thought about.
Great idea, because usually the adults start partying and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden
and then-
something happens,
Yeah.
something really bad
Yeah.
happens because they get distracted. So having one person dedicated,
One person.
it's like
Or more.
standing.
Or more, or,
It's
yeah.
like standing
Well, anytime
watch.
we go to a
It's
party,
like-
we're all sitting there like
Yeah.
It's
this.
like standing watch
Yeah.
in the military.
Absolutely.
You take an hour and then somebody else takes an hour.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, it's a fantastic thing that you're getting that word out there.
Well, again, that goes full circle back to Mel and Doris, that, it's about teaching them to be able to live in the water and realizing that, being around the water is important too, and the whole kit and caboodle of behavior, ability, and confidence, but not reckless confidence. So
Yeah, we wanted to enjoy it and have respect for it. You'll have more fun if it's safe.
that's right. With the ability should come the responsibility, and it's like anything else. But it's just been so wonderful for me personally to have been there from almost the very beginning and see not only the growth of the business and the families. We calculated that we must have taught somewhere between 200 and 300,000 people in the 65 years, and the generations. But the part of the community that we've become so integral with, and watching the growth of the environment around. I mean, how Tustin has evolved through the years, and that's why we love what you're doing with the Historical Museum, of honoring that past and that legacy as we look to the future. And that's what we hope we're able to do with passing it on to Eric and his wife, and hopefully some of the grandkids. But maybe 10 years we'll be here celebrating our 75th.
Well, Johnny's probably too modest to mention it, but the International Aquatics magazine had you down as one of the 25 most influential people in aquatics in the past 25 years. I knew
Well.
you wouldn't mention that yourself, so I thought I'd
Yeah,
throw that in.
no, he's
Well,
It's pretty
done
amazing.
a lot for the
John.
aquatics
Had an
industry.
impact.
that's the neat thing about aquatics, is there are so many connections and so many facets. And we really love the International Swimming Hall of Fame because it's much like the museum. They're honoring the past. I mean, they've got a handbook written by Benjamin Franklin on teaching swimming, and he actually invented hand paddles back in the 1700s.
Yeah, I saw the patent for those when I was looking
Yeah,
at some stuff.
yeah. So it's just so wonderful to have those connections. And of course, you're around a long time, and if you're involved and active, I've been blessed with someone that keeps prodding me to don't be a dreamer, be a visionary, and make things happen. And we've made a good team, and the family's been so supportive and involved in so many things that we've done. And there's a lot of neat things. I think one of the ones we're really proud of was this past April. Cindy and I were recognized with Lifetime Achievement from the National Drowning Prevention Alliance, because that has been such a passion for us with the Stop Drowning Now. And then the Swim School Association has recognized us with humanitarian awards and guiding lights and the Hall of Fame, which is kind of cool too. So, but anyway, it's
Well,
it's
that's
neat.
fantastic. It certainly seems to me like they're all well-deserved awards.
Well, and we like to really stand behind our motto of great beginnings lead to great finishes, and then not just with the people we've produced as far as elite athletes, but the quality people. And Cindy talked about how it's the first job for many of our teachers. Tustin recognized us as Tustin's best place to work, and we like to think of all our teachers as family, but not only our teachers, but our customers, the kids and their parents. And that's the name change a few years ago from Buoy Swim School
Well, I
to
think
Buoy Family Swim School.
From what I've heard, one of the success story here is that multi-generations, they keep bringing the kids back, and then they keep bringing the kids back. Multi-generational.
We have a fun thing
Aspect of
when the
it
kids
is,
have
great
birthdays,
success.
we give them a T-shirt, our uniform shirt, and we say, okay, we're getting them used to the uniform.
So they're gonna
So
come
when
to
they,
you.
they're in
In a
high
few years.
school, they can come back, and our favorite thing is to have them start guarding in high school, and then we get to know them. Well, we already know them somewhat, but get to know them, and then they can start teaching, and that's a great job to have throughout college, and many of them stay.
And our
as a
grandparent shirts.
job. Yeah, and we have grandparent shirts as well. The family. So when they
Grandparents
come
come
in,
the first time, and quick funny story. Many of our grandparents have children in other states and grandchildren taking swim lessons at some of our friends' swim schools. And so we've had 2 different occasions where they went into the other swim schools wearing the Blue Boy Swim School grandparent shirt. And our friend in Phoenix, he's like a brother to me, but he's one of the deck people, came rushing, Bob, somebody just came in wearing one of Johnny's shirts. So there's a lot of good-natured back and forth within the industry, but
All based on what I'd say would be a wonderful reputation.
well,
Changing lives. You think of all the things you can do as a career, but not many afford the opportunity to be changing lives every single day.
And
that's,
not only changing, but saving.
yeah, saving.
Saving lives.
And his special abilities kids.
Oh.
And Eric can attest to
Tell
that.
'em about Brandon real
because
quick,
we're so
Eric.
individualized in our methodology.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the experience of working with different kids. I have one student named Brandon. He's 28 now. He's been coming since he was probably about 5 or so, I think. And just been continuing on with the lessons and just the experience that we have together when we get to swim. You know, just
He's autistic.
yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, forgot
Yeah.
to mention his special
that's-
ability, but yeah, and just the experience he has, which is so positive, coming here and just being able to kind of do things that maybe he won't have the opportunity to do as much, you know, elsewhere.
That's good. Let's take a quick break here, which you can edit out. How we doing on time? And I want to ask them if there's something we've left out. Are we at about?
We're about probably 35 to 40 minutes right now.
That's about what we like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
People
fine.
watching these things. Can
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
they
can
can.
Zone out, yeah.
But, you know, we can,
But is there anything?
I don't know, did you want to do the fun fact on Kavik?
yes, I knew there was something else
Yeah.
that we
You
missed.
can always edit that into the other.
This is Bob Ammon's nephew, Anders Hundeby.
Yes.
Broke a long-standing record held by Mike Kavik, who was Tustin's Olympian, and had that incredible race with Michael Phelps in China, where he lost by 100th of a second
yeah.
with
Are
the
we-
fingernail.
Are we on, or no?
No.
No, but
No, but I still think he won.
Yeah, you can see the pictures.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah, you didn't really
Sure
talk
close.
about 10 Olympians, but no, doesn't really matter.
Well, we did, but
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Earlier?
with Eric talking about Mackenzie and Aria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
Guess we went out.
I would like to mention
Oh, it
Okay,
doesn't matter. We can put it-
about Anders. That was kind of fun because it just happened
he'll
last week.
edit all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get it started again. Well, Johnny, do you have any other stories about people that have done really, really well in the Olympics?
Well, there was a really neat event that happened last week at Tustin High School at their swim team awards banquet. Our granddaughter just finished her 4-year career at Tustin, and one of her teammates, Anders Hundeby, who is Bob Amon's nephew, broke a long-standing record of Michael Kavik, who was a silver medalist in the Beijing Olympics, and I think Tustin's maybe their only Olympian in swimming. But Anders got to take down Mike's nameplate on the record board and put his up there. But the neat thing was that Anders' dad was a young man that I taught as a 3-year-old who went on to break the world record for the English Channel swim and became probably the #1 marathon swimmer in the world for almost a decade.
Wow.
And I taught Anders and his brother Hayden to swim when they were little, and then we taught Michael Kavik.
When you tap on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you tap on the table, it really picks it up. So-
Wow, that is sensitive.
Yeah,
Okay, well, we'll do that again.
okay.
So the beautiful thing about Anders is that I actually taught his father when he was 3 years old, and Chad is one of our 10 Olympians or world record holders. Chad broke the world record for the English Channel swim and held it for almost 11 years.
Wow.
So, and Michael
That's a big
Kavik,
deal.
yeah, it was a
English
huge deal.
Channel.
Yeah, he was a marathon swimmer. He swam around. He swam Catalina a couple times, and just phenomenal. Yeah, Chad was actually the Orange County Swimmer of the Year in 1989 from Woodbridge High School. but he lives in Tustin now, and both his boys learned here at Blue Buoy, Anders and Hayden. And the neat thing, the record that he broke, Michael Cavick, Tustin's Olympian, also learned to swim here. So it's just an amazing connection. And we, in the audience, talking with several of the kids' parents, there were probably a half a dozen of the teammates that all learned at Blue Buoy, and probably 4 or 5 of their parents also took lessons here. So it's, again, we're part of such an incredible community, and I'm always amazed at the connections. And we've done a little celebration of our 65th anniversary by doing a vinyl wrap of my pickup truck with some Blue Buoy, and the comments we're getting driving around town, oh, my kid swam there 20 years ago, or I swam there. And so it's really been wonderful, and we love this town.
Well, from everything I've heard, the 2 most fascinating things are the multi-generational aspect, which gives me the feeling of Tustin being as big as it is still a small place. And the other thing is the idea of saving lives. Such a big contribution to society, because drowning is such a big problem with little tiny kids. So I think you all are doing a phenomenal job, as made obvious by the multi-generational things. We've enjoyed chatting with you, and this has been a wonderful interview, and thank you very much. And you'll be on YouTube with the Historical Society videos. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ivan.
That's a wrap.